Hi everyone. If you're enjoying the show and have appreciated the tips and experience being shared with you, maybe consider leaving a one-off tip to support production, including the hosting, the booking, the marketing, the recording, the editing, and every other aspect of making a show like this. You can do that by visiting podcastingpeople.uk/support or via the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening. Hello, podcasting people, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Show, where I chat to you podcasters to find out more about you and what you're using to make your podcasts. In this episode, you're going to be hearing from Mr. Danny Brown, Head of Podcaster Support and Experience at podcast hosting platform Captivate. Danny has a number of shows on the go and uses a whole bunch of hardware and software to help him make them sound as good as they possibly can. If you enjoy this podcast, you can let me know in the comments down below and give it a like. I'd love to build podcasting people up into a welcoming and supportive community. So any word spreading and recommendation will be greatly appreciated. Now, if you're sitting comfortably, don't worry about taking notes because all the tools Danny mentions are also in a neat list in the post/show notes with handy links to said things. So kick back and enjoy this chat with Danny Brown. Danny Brown, welcome to Behind the Show.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this new episode. I apologise. This new show, but it probably is a new episode once this is released.
Yes. Yeah, I've had one episode out, which I should have shared with you actually, because it was my setup. So I did a solo episode where I talked through my hardware and software, and I had a star of the show, which was Calendly. Mm-hmm. So I just find that has saved me so much time. And time really is the thing, isn't it? You know, before recording, we were talking about video and how long that takes. And so, yeah, for me, it's just such a time saver, automating all the intros and after the show and, you know, this and that. But first, before we dive into your setup, it would be good to let listeners know who you are, who you work for, what kind of shows you do. Because, I mean, you are, I think, like me, you've described yourself as a serial podcaster. Any excuse to start something new. So, yeah, give us a little background, Danny.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Danny Brown, not to be mistaken for the Detroit rapper, which I used to get mistaken for when I was on Twitter previously. I used to have an old account on Twitter before my latest one. And I used to get a lot of his fans tweeting me some interesting stuff. Wow. And he actually connected with me to apologise. He says, no, it's all good. It's all fun. So anywho, my name's Danny Brown. As you mentioned, I am a serial podcaster. I've been podcasting on and off for 10 years, but consistently for the last 7 years now. I have multiple shows. I've got 3 active at the moment, 2 which are my own. One I co-host with my colleague at Captivate, which is where I work. And Captivate is primarily a podcast hosting, distribution, analytics and monetization platform for serious indie podcasters.
Yeah. And by the way, that podcast, I mean, all of your shows are fantastic. In and around podcasting that you co-host with Mark Asquith of Captivate is brilliant. It's just a breath of fresh air, I think, in the kind of landscape of podcasts about podcasting. For sure. Yeah. And I was lucky enough to be a guest on one of your shows. My other podcast is. So maybe I'll put the link to those shows in the show notes for people to find easily. Okay, so we're here to talk about your setup. I'm looking at maybe I can take a squad shot, they call it on Squadcast, to show everyone your background, because we've got similar acoustic tiles, haven't we? But yours are funky colours.
I've been told that they're aggressive, which was not the look and feel I was going for. I used to have so I moved offices. This is like my home office at home. It's not huge. It's my daughter's old bedroom. But previously I had a blue background, like a blue wall, blue hardwood, whatever material walls are made of. I have no idea. So that was blue anyway, and it had some black, much like you've got in the background there, Gareth, with the sound panels behind you. So it was black and blue. So I thought I'm going to go for a change now that I'm in a different room, and I like red, but sometimes it can be a bit bright and aggressive, I guess, but I like it.
I don't think it didn't cross my mind, honestly. It's just funky is the word I'd use. Anyway, shall I take a photo of that? Do you mind?
No, for sure.
Okay. So you'll give a countdown. There we go. I think you'll get that as well, which is a nice little feature. There we go.
Oh, there it is, yep.
Don't know what my face is doing. There we go. Anyway, a very nice setup. So for your shows that you do, I'm guessing that for in and around podcasting, you mentioned Mark does a lot of the video. So for different shows, I guess you do different things in your production kind of process. But for a typical, maybe for one of your own shows, like a lot of us making shows by ourselves and being every step of the process, let's go through what you would use. So, hardware, what do you use?
Sure. So from a mic, so let's do mics because that's what I'm speaking into at the moment, obviously.
Yeah.
So I switch between a condenser. So at the moment I'm on my TZ Audio Stellar X2 condenser mic. And I've been using this primarily as my main mic since about Christmas, I guess. And if I'm not using this, I've got over there, I've got like the Shure SM7B for a dynamic. And really it's about, what's my recording environment like. So if I'm at home, I'll be using the condenser. So I'm in my sort of treated room, etc. But if I'm out somewhere, I'm doing a local interview or anything like that, I will take obviously the SM7B because that's dynamic, so it's more forgiving for background noise rejection. And a couple other dynamics that I've got just hidden away that I'll use for that. So that's on the mic side.
By the way, just jumping in,
yeah,
you hit on a very good point there, which was to treat the room. So you sound really, really good. I'm not going to be doing any kind of post for fixing the audio or anything because you've already considered what's around you. And then, that's half the battle, isn't it, to sounding good through the microphone. Anyway.
Well, no, and it's funny. It's one of the things I always recommend. So I'm very active on Reddit, for example, and some of the podcasting groups on Facebook, etc. And anytime I see new podcasters asking what equipment should I buy, and people will jump on and say, oh, you need to get the SM7B, you need to get the $3,000 Neumann, you need to get the Rodecaster Pro 2, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. You can get great sound if your room is treated. It doesn't have to be perfectly treated, but add some soft, furnishings to it. So blankets on the wall if you're not on camera, for example, cushions, chairs, a rug to cover hardwood floor, anything you can soften the room with. Start with that, and then you can get away with using a £50 microphone and, USB straight into your laptop. Keep your costs down. Make sure you like podcasting and you want to continue with it. And then you can upgrade. I mean, it's taken me 7-8 years to get to the stage where I'm pretty happy with A, the room, and B, the equipment. So don't jump in and spend hundreds of pounds or dollars and then realize a month later, I don't like this because I have to do a lot of work. So.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah. Okay, so we've got the microphone down.
So that's the microphones. So the microphones sit on arms. So the Shure is sat on a Joby Wave arm. So that's like a traditional boom arm that goes up and over your monitor and then comes down the way.
Right.
The arm I'm using on my condenser is the Elgato low profile arm. So it's actually down and I can raise it up if I want. But it's basically to keep the arm and everything out the shot. And all you should really see is my mic popping upwards.
Yeah. So
that's the arms. From a recording point of view, I record and I use the Rodecaster Pro 2. I will say it's a bit overkill for my needs. Had I known the Rodecaster Duo was coming out shortly after I bought this thing, I would have waited for the Rodecaster Duo because that's got the number of inputs that I'd be happy with in using.
So is the Rodecaster basically an audio interface? I mean, what differentiates it from, say, just an interface with a couple of inputs?
So prior to this, I did use the Motu M2, which is just basically, it is an interface. It's got two mic inputs. I think it's got one headphone, and that's it. It's all good. The main difference with the Rodecaster, it allows you to do a lot of pre-production stuff to save you time on post-production. So I can set up voice profiles and set up my de-essers, my compressor, all that kind of cool stuff. It has settings for different mics that you use or different types of mics. So it's got a condenser setting, a dynamic setting, an SM7B setting, a Rode NT1s, all that cool stuff. It's got a whole bunch of settings that will set the presets for you based on the mic. So it'll set your gain level, it'll set the kind of compression it needs, the noise gate, etc. So it's got a whole bunch of stuff on there. It's got sound pads, so you can add sound effects and upload your own audio files. So if you're streaming, you can have your show intro, you can have like funny little dingers, all that cool stuff. So it's basically a little recording studio for your home
Yeah.
recording. So it's really cool. I do like it. As mentioned, I would say it's probably overkill for what I need.
Yeah.
But the Duo wasn't out when I got this, or I would have gone for that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the sound effects, that's appealing to have those in situ. I've got a podcast where we go back in time, so I've got this sting, which is like a ticking clock. But I always have to describe it and say, yeah, I'm going to put that in afterwards. But yeah, it would add to the experience, wouldn't it, to have that in situ?
Yeah, well, I know when I first got this, my kids were just, they saw the flashing lights and all the coloured pads, etc. And they came in and gone, ooh, what's this? So I put on like the little chipmunk voice effect and the bad robot kind of sound effect. And they had the headphones on, speaking in the microphone. They were just playing with it for about an hour, just listening to the silly voice effects it could do. So yeah, it's really good. And I'd recommend if you're a serious podcaster that does a lot of recording and maybe streaming, etc., it's worth looking at. But like I mentioned, maybe the Duo would also meet your needs, from that point of view. It's got all the same features, just less inputs.
Fantastic. So where's the Rodecaster going into?
So that goes into my software. Just
Sure.
finishing off on the hardware side.
Yeah.
So on the hardware, for video, I use the Elgato webcam, the face cam, which is fine. It's okay, but I've not got the best lighting setup. That's one thing I do need to improve on is my lighting. Get that sort of just good to go. And then just use my MacBook Air. It's an M1 2020, nothing special, but it does. It's fine for what I need it for.
Yeah, great. I mean, the M1, those chips when they came out, they're insane, aren't they? Basically, they're
One
very,
thing is
very
they're up
good.
to, I think, the M4, or they're about to release the M4, I think, which is ridiculous in the space of 4 years. Well, I guess 4 years, like a chip a year maybe.
Yeah, but even so, I mean, these are expensive machines, aren't they? And for the average consumer. But then, unless you're working in tech, you're not really expected to get every single chip, 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, exactly. And I, like I said, I've had this since 2020, and I traded in my old Mac for it anyway, so I probably saved a few bucks there.
Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so is that it on the hardware?
I guess
side
the
of
only
things?
thing is these things.
Oh,
very
of course,
important.
headphones.
Obviously, headphones.
Yeah.
I always recommend you use headphones when you're recording and editing. But yeah, they're the Sony MDR 7506. They're neutral headphones, so it means they're not top heavy on bass or mid range, etc. They'll basically replicate what you're saying into your mic, and there's no latency, so really important.
Fantastic. Yes, I find that level playing field is good for mixing music as well. It's getting a true representation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, on to the software. What do we have?
Yep, so recording wise, so I'll start there because that goes back to the Rodecaster. So that plugs directly into Hindenburg Pro, or Hindenburg Pro 2 now, as it's called. But anyway, Hindenburg Pro. And that's my DAW, so I record into that if I'm recording locally. I'll also edit that, and that's where I'll add any post-production, so any audio cleanup, all that kind of stuff. I'll do that in Hindenburg Pro. I also use, so that's my recording and editing software. If I'm doing remote recording, so we're using Squadcast at the moment, I'll use Boomcaster. Very similar platform. It's a remote recording platform that also offers live streaming, separate audio, video, all the cool stuff that you need on a remote recording platform.
And that actually, when I was your guest and you were using Boomcaster, you could tailor the background as well, couldn't you? So
so you can basically create as many studios as you want. So if you've got multiple podcasts, I know you've got multiple podcasts, Gareth. You could create a separate studio, all with its own branding, logos, background, etc., and then jiggle it. So if you want to remove the logo and put it over your guest's mouth for a bit of fun, you can do that. It's entirely up to yourself. So basically, it's just a talking logo. But yeah, it's a nice platform. So I've used that for 2 years now.
Excellent. Yeah.
So yeah, Hindenburg Pro, Boomcaster. On transcripts, I think transcripts are important. It should be in pretty much every show, especially because you can get them for free now. For transcripts, I use WhisperScript, which is a Mac app. So it's a desktop app. You download it. So all the transcription is being done on my Mac and then sent up to get corrected, etc. Really good, really accurate. I found it hard to get a transcription service that recognizes a lot of the words that I say.
Does Hindenburg do
Hindenburg does have a transcript service. I don't use it. I don't find it very accurate.
Right. Okay.
And I do tend to find it can slow production down a bit because it's processing a whole bunch of stuff. So the more plugins you use and the more effects you add to your audio when you're exporting, it can slow it down. And I feel that the transcript sometimes adds to that slowness. So I try to limit that as much as I can. And like I said, I don't find it very accurate. At least for me, I don't think I've got a strong Scottish accent, but I know it's there.
Sorry, what?
So,
Joking.
so WhisperScript is the one I use for that. I also use, what do I use else that I use? Oh, I've just started using a tool called Video, which is it's like a clip generator. So basically, if you have a video, so obviously my other podcast has a video option on it, and in and around podcasts and has a video option. So if you use video, basically what you can do is either connect your YouTube account or just add a URL to the episode that you want to get clipped, and that will use AI and create a bunch of clips you can use on TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, etc.
Wow.
And I've always been very skeptical with these tools. I've tried some and found them to make interesting clip choices that had nothing to do with what I was actually talking about. But I found Video to be really cool at identifying that'd be a good clip, and having good starting and ending points for these clips. So I've just been messing about with that for the last, I'm going to say 2-3 weeks actually. It's very new to me, but I do like the results, so I might continue to use that.
Ah, that's fantastic. So that rounds off the software in your workflow?
One other thing. One other thing. I just remembered when you mentioned post-production, that just triggered me and says, yeah, I've got something else as well. So I know a lot of people use isotope tools for post-production, audio, repair, optimization, etc. And awesome tool set. I've used isotope myself, but what I use is Acusonus. Now, they're no longer around, unfortunately. They got purchased by Meta back in 2021, I'm going to say, or even 2022. But what they do, very similar. So you've got debrief, DS, declicker, noise remover, all that cool stuff that you can really fix, the sound of your audio. So I've still got that. It still works, and it's on perpetual license now. So when they got bought by Meta, every license owner that they had using their software, they just gave them a complete perpetual license. It will never run out, and you can use the software as long as it works with your hardware. So that's fine. It works for now. If Hindenburg ever made an update that broke that, I'm sure I'm guessing I'd have to switch over to Isotope or something. But at the moment, Acusonus Era Bundle 6, awesome collection of tools, and it's a shame that they're no longer around.
I use something called Supertone Clear, which does a very similar thing. It's all based on AI. EI?
EIO.
Based
Farm
on AI,
robots.
and it's called denoise and de-reverb voice separator, basically. So if it ever does run out, your license, then that's a new one, relatively new one on the market. It's on sale at the moment for $69, but works really, really effectively. If you want that quick fix, I mean, obviously you can go down the rabbit hole of doing things yourself with EQs and limiters and all the rest of it. So, yeah, okay. Are we ready for the star of the show? Which bit of your whole production process is the superstar? What is it for you, Danny? What could you not do without?
I'm going to say Hindenburg. I know I just berated him a little bit for the processing time it can take for exporting files, but again, that's because you've added certain repair plugins, etc., which is always going to add, to the processing speed, etc. But what I like about Hindenburg, there's a lot of things I like about it. I veered away from it for the longest time. I tried it years ago. I found it interesting but clunky. The user interface was clunky. And again, we were speaking about platforms that were clearly built by developers and not creators. And I think Hindenburg at the time was probably built by journalists, maybe working with developers, because it was originally meant to make it really easy for journalists to edit audio and get audio stuff out for the radio. That's where the background of Hindenburg came from. And they've cleaned that up a lot and had a lot of features released over the last sort of couple of years. I jumped back in, and what I like about Hindenburg, so some of the features it does, you upload your audio file and immediately that will remove any noise in the background, and it will also bring up your levels or lower your levels to get to a nice sort of level peak when you upload your audio. So if you've got 2 or 3 speakers and you upload separate audio files for each speaker, obviously, that will look and say, okay, he's at minus 23, he's at minus 12, and she's at minus 19. Let's balance them all out and get them at a consistent rate. So it does that for you. The interface is really clean when you want to edit. So you've got big waveforms. You can see where all the ums are right away. You can just sort of highlight that and get rid of them. Go away, ums. Get out. So it sees that right away. It's VST plugin compatible, so it supports Isotope, Acusonic, the one that you mentioned, etc. So it's got full plugin support. And on the export, now it also has a new feature where you can actually optimize the audio for video. So you can record a video like we're doing now, download this from Squadcast, and upload that to Hindenburg, do your audio repair, and chuck that back out. So now all the audio will be to your profile settings with the video that we've recorded on Squadcast. You're not reliant on the Squadcast audio or Riverside audio or Boomcaster audio, etc.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I really do like about it is on the export. So if I add chapters to my audio, that goes out on the export and that gets picked up by Captivate when I'm creating my episode. It puts in the chapter markers for me and I add an image or a URL if I want to expand it a bit. But it also allows you to set to the right LUFS setting for podcasting. Everybody should be mixing to -16 on mono or -19 on stereo.
These are broadcast industry standards.
Yeah, broadcast standards, exactly. And Apple Podcasts, which let's face it, maybe not so much Spotify, they'll disagree, but Apple is the big player still in the room.
Yeah.
They kind of dictate what the standards are. So they'll set the artwork standards, the sound standards, the LUFS standards, etc. So yeah, -16, you can set all that so you know that you're exporting exactly the way it should sound for the loudness level on podcast apps, which is a major saving point, because I know a lot of times before I used Hindenburg, I would have to upload my exported file from GarageBand, for example, and stick that up to Authonic, do a lot of audio repair on Authonic, download the file, and then upload that to Captivate. That Hindenburg removes all that. So it does a lot of stuff for you when you upload your files, and it does a lot of stuff for you when you export your files.
That is fabulous. Well, Danny, thank you so much for talking us through your hardware, software, and of course your star of the show, which is Hindenburg. All that's left to say is thanks for joining me on Behind the Show.
You're very welcome, and thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Like the sound of this episode? The Sound Boutique can help with your show too, from fixing problem audio all the way through to producing full shows. Visit thesoundboutique.com today to start a conversation. The link is in the show notes.